What's up, Builties? The next Built World Cafecito Club meetup is happening June 13th at 9 a.m.-ish. That's Miami time, and you're not going to want to miss this one. We had a great turnout at our first one last month, Ben.
We just blew up Maman, have just crowded all those poor diners in there. Everyone was talking deals while other people were trying to eat breakfast. It was... we had more people than we expected, so it was awesome.
Absolutely. So what's up for this month, Ben?
We're teaming up with Russell Galbett and the team over at Crescent Heights. Going to go get a behind-the-scenes look at the Crescent Seas project and the Gale project. We're meeting them downtown Miami at the Gale Hotel.
Yeah, so complimentary cafecito, real estate power players, and off-market whispers, all before 11 a.m.
Space is limited, so hit up builtworldadvisors.com, check out the blog, and RSVP today.
Built World Cafecito Club, strong coffee, stronger deals.
Let's go. We also got to mention the Built World is hitting the road. We're heading to the ULI Florida Summit on June 9th and 10th. It's going to be at the Hyatt Regency in Coconut Point in Bonita Springs. This is one of the great events for real estate development in the state, where they're going to have over 600 industry leaders there. We'll be there in the mix, doing some breakout sessions, recording some podcasts, kissing babies, shaking hands, talking real estate. So if you guys are going to attend, reach out, let us know. We'd love to connect while we're there. And if you're curious, you can find more info and register for the event at florida.uli.org. So we'll be dropping some content from the summit, for stay tuned. See you guys in Bonita Springs. This episode is brought to you by Built World Advisors. Yeah, that's us. We're not your typical commercial brokerage. We combine deep market knowledge with a media platform that actually connects to people doing deals. The developers, brokers, architects, and attorneys.
And let's not forget the investors, Ben. From warehouses in East Hialeah to off-market gems in Alapata, we help you find value where others aren't looking. If you're tired of waiting for opportunities to land in your inbox, let's talk.
Built World Advisors, real estate for the people who get shit done. You can check us out at builtworldadvisors.com.
Back to the show.
This episode is brought to you by Bureau, our title sponsor. With 8 vibrant locations in Miami's best neighborhoods, Bureau is the perfect co-working place to work, network, and thrive alongside other entrepreneurs, creatives, professionals, and local businesses. Find your space at bureaumiami.com.
All right. Sounds good.
Sounds great.
Comfortable?
Yeah.
Awesome.
We're recording.
Yep, we're live.
We're live.
Sound good, looking good, feeling good.
Sound good, look good. Always.
All right.
Well, we're sitting here with Nelson Stabile. Nelson, thanks for coming down.
Yeah, Nelson, the co-founder and principal of Integra. It's finally nice to meet you. We've crossed paths several times. You look super familiar.
For sure.
So the real estate world here in Miami is pretty tiny. So if you go to several events, you always cross paths with the same people. So welcome.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. And I feel honored knowing, of the list of high-profile real estate players that you guys have had here in the pod before. Honored to, you've had Kobe Carp, you've had, right, Isaac Toledano, you've had Scott Sherman, you've had some real heavy hitters here.
You're not to get into people.
Yeah, so I may bring that average a little bit down, but,
Yeah, I got that.
We guess it was up the right way.
Yeah, cheers. Cheers. Driven priorities again for a second day in a row.
Cheers.
Cheers, Nelson.
All right.
Like you said, it's like the first day of summer, so this is quite appropriate.
Yeah, it is. Everybody has been complaining since the, end of April, beginning of May, and I didn't really feel it until today. Today the blast, the heat is just to another level.
Yeah, so Nelson brought us these cool Integra shirts. We also found out he's a beach tennis player, like myself.
This is firing. That's firing.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. It's the Brazilian blood in us, I think, where anything that involves a ball on a beach, like we're all in for that, right?
That's right. Yeah, it's a big thing in Brazil for sure.
Yeah, it's a huge sport in Brazil. Beach tennis is big in Brazil.
Oh man. Look, I have zero statistics to back this up, but I'd say historically, right, it's been soccer, right?
Yeah.
Volleyball, I'd say.
Football.
Football.
In this program, we say football.
We
don't know, the word soccer.
Got it. So we got a football, and I played last night. I still play.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
And in a league in Key Biscayne, but it's actually pretty competitive. It was a lot of fun. Let's not talk about the results of last night, but it's a lot of fun. And I'd say that's number one sport. Number two is volleyball, I'd say.
Yeah,
right?
Unless you played as well.
Which I played.
You played in college or what'd you do?
I played through college. College for me was club because I went to University of Miami. So you did your master's there, right?
I did my master's there.
Yeah. So they didn't have like an actual, but I played club through that. But but that was a big sport for me growing up.
Beach volleyball and 6-on-6.
Yes.
Yeah.
6-on-6. I have more accolades on the 6-on-6 than I do on beach. But beach tennis is amazing. So I think beach tennis for sure now it's probably the third, right, like sport coming up, and it may be second. I think it'll take over in number of people playing and
over
volleyball.
Yeah,
I think so.
Much more accessible.
It's more accessible, and I do feel eventually it'll become an Olympic sport, right? And,
I think it's slated to become one.
Right.
But it's been a sport for like 30 years. It started in Italy, right? And then I think the Italians brought it to Brazil.
Yeah.
And it blew up there. And I think Puerto Rico's a country that
plays a lot.
Well, it's not a country. It's a colony. Like I tell my wife, she's Puerto Rican.
Yeah.
So I tell her it's a colony. Yeah. So they play a lot in Puerto Rico as well.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I think, of course, right now here in South Florida, we are probably, which to some extent is actually connected to real estate, right? But we're seeing this sort of burst of padel, right? Or the paddle outlets or places to play, right? Like all over the place. And that became very popular also, I think, because of some of the European, Argentinian, and American influence. But I think beach tennis will catch at some point, and then we're going to start seeing more locations.
Very familiar.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Usually all that same we have.
Yeah, it's a great vibe. Yeah.
And I have a group of about 6 or 7 of our own Integra team members that every Friday morning. Today was an off day because there's too many of us traveling. But every Friday morning we're actually playing now.
Oh, really?
Beach tennis.
Oh,
yeah.
Cool. Where, on Key Biscayne?
In Key Biscayne.
Oh, nice. That's cool.
So
that's a great way to start the morning.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Felipe, ever since we moved into Bureau, my productivity has been through the roof. I mean, I might actually be getting things done for once.
The energy at Bureau just makes work fun. Plus, with 8 locations across South Florida, from South Miami all the way to Hollywood, there's no excuse for not finding a spot to get your shit done, Ben.
And we're not alone. Over 500 local companies call Bureau home. Everything from creative agencies and real estate firms to tech startups, law firms, and media companies. It's a melting pot of brilliant people, and we don't include ourselves in that category.
We definitely don't include ourselves in that category. Bureau really has space for anyone, whether you're flying solo or have a team. There are suites starting at 100 square feet all the way up to 2,000 square feet. They also don't try to lock you into long-term agreements, and everything is month to month.
Let's not forget the important stuff either. The coffee is top tier, staff is incredible, and has a very entrepreneurial vibe. It's not just a workspace. It's a place where work actually gets done.
That's right, Ben. So if you want to level up your workday like we try to do every day, check out Bureau. You might even catch us sipping some espressos between podcast sessions.
Or tequila.
Definitely tequila.
Tell Bureau the Built World sent you, and you'll get 50% off your first month's membership. See you out there. Cheers.
Later. Well, cool. So you've listened to a couple of our podcasts, and so we really want to get to know you and bring it back to your days in Brazil, because you were born in Brazil. Your parents are both Brazilian?
Yes.
Where did your parents immigrate from, or their ancestors to Brazil?
So 3 out of my 4 grandparents are from Italy.
Uh-huh.
So they migrated to Brazil in the 20s.
Mm-hmm.
Then my parents were born in Brazil.
Yep.
But
you grew up in the northern part of Brazil, right?
Yeah. So I was born in São Paulo, the big city.
Yeah.
But when I was 2 years old,
23 million people now. São Paulo has about
massive population.
Yeah.
Wow. So it's impressive. So I was born there. Both of my parents are doctors, but when I was 2 years old, they just decided to make a life-changing family decision and move to a very small town in the middle of the Amazon.
Wow.
About, call it less than 200 miles, maybe 150 miles from the border of Brazil and Bolivia.
Wow.
But in a place, it was a pretty cool setting growing up, right?
But holy shit, like why? So in what year was this that they moved there? Because
effectively we moved in 1980.
Okay.
So my father purchased he bought a farm with the objective of raising cattle, right? That was the intent. In that area in 1976 when he was still finishing his residency in medical school. And then just decided to, that part of the country was very, there was,
I mean, it's extremely remote.
very remote,
Yeah.
but also a lot of opportunities.
Yeah.
Right? It was an up and coming area. Land was very inexpensive at the time.
Yep.
Both of them were doctors, so there's good sort of federal government job opportunities for them. So
So they went there to be doctors, not farmers.
to do both.
Yeah.
Right. So my dad practiced medicine as a doctor for the federal government for all his life. My mom established a private practice and also worked for the government, half and half.
Okay.
My mom still practices medicine. My dad has, about 5 years ago, a little bit before COVID, he retired from medicine and just, has the cattle business.
Wow.
So it's pretty cool because we didn't have electricity all throughout the entire day, right? Like we had electricity for about 6 hours, in the day.
Wow.
Unless you had a private generator, which for a few years we were not able to afford, right? So
Were your parents like hippies or something like that?
no, just very,
What made him want to do that? Like,
Because I mean it's hot as balls there too, and there's no air conditioning.
oh, and probably humid. Yeah. Yeah.
Humid, I imagine too, right?
Yeah,
Bugs.
My dad is a bit of I call him a modern day Crocodile Dundee type personality, right? The guy, we could have a few hour podcast just on the guy. Is
He's a personality.
he's a personality. He's incredible. But he was he had grown up in sort of in the state of São Paulo, but in a smaller town. So he just moved to São Paulo for medical school. And so he was a guy who liked small town settings, just and nature, right? Like naturally.
What
And,
town did you grow up outside São Paulo?
He grew up in one called Presidente Prudente,
Okay.
which now is a 400,000 people town, but
Yeah.
back then it was much smaller. So we moved into the city, which had about 2,500 people, but literally, and they were one of the first doctors to arrive in the area. So my dad, even though he's a gastrosurgeon, the guy was doing open heart surgery. He was
Yeah.
trying to save people, however, right? Like it was.
It's maybe my first time, but I'm going to figure out how to do this surgery.
In the Amazonian
It's the best
rainforest.
they have right now.
Yeah, no, they had no choice,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So he was, it was pretty interesting, but moved out there, and he was doing both and raising cattle, acquiring little by little, acquiring.
So you got your taste for real estate early on as well. I mean, it's a farm. It's
Yeah, yes, and he has a bit of a different, especially having our business here, right? We become almost, I don't know if trading. How do you call it? We become accustomed to we become very transactional, right? Like we don't really build too much attachment to real estate, as opposed to folks from his generation. Real estate is a big thing, but you acquire and you never sell, right? So to this day, like we still have, family healthy discussions about what to do, right, with some agricultural property as an example, because in his mind, you only buy, hold forever, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's some wisdom to that too.
There is nothing against it, right? But over here, doing what we do, naturally, your mind is always like, have I added as much value as I can? Are we in a good cycle? Should I get out and get ready for the next cycle, right?
Yep.
You're always trying to get yourself prepared for new waves of opportunities and moments in the market. So, but it was pretty unique setting growing up there. I actually, very much looking back, I couldn't have asked for a better place to grow up, right? Because
So you moved to, again, what was the name of the town?
the name of the town is Ji, Paraná.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how old were you when you moved there?
I was 2.
You were 2?
And I lived there until I was 14, turning 15, right? So that's exactly the, and then I had the opportunity to come to go to school here in the US.
And were you homeschooled or did you go to a public school?
No, I had I was the first class in the first private school in the area, right? So I was fortunate to, have the opportunity. Not that, the public schools, there wasn't a huge gap of, but, a private school was a little bit more of a challenging setting.
Yeah, public schools are a little, they're not that great in Brazil.
In Brazil, correct.
And especially in the country. I mean, anywhere like that.
Yeah, so we would get all of our books from São Paulo, right? Big, like a standardized textbook, so the content was good because it was coming from the South. And then you're dealing with the local teachers, which
but your class must have been tiny, right? Like
class depending on what age and grade, ranging from 20 to 30.
Oh,
right?
wow.
On my class, and as you can imagine, like the people who I actually have friends from I don't know what we would call it here, before kindergarten, like pre-K
Yep.
3,
Yep.
pre-K 4, when you're 3 or 4 years old. I have friends to this day that were together and stay in touch, right, through all of our lives, because we studied all the way until I moved here when I was in 8th grade in Brazil. That's when I came to the U.S. To go to high school. And so it's kind of cool, right? Because you have the bond that you have with folks who, and it's just very unique.
And what a great way to grow up, like just ultimate freedom. I feel like I grew up in a small town too, in the country in Minnesota, but it's like way different climate, but tiny town, and you could just go, like you just go in the woods, like doing whatever, just exploring.
Yeah, I learned how to, and some of the things that we take, especially the younger generations now living here, right? We take for granted. But I learned how to ride my bicycle probably when I was 5 years old. When I was 6, I was already loose, right? Like I could go anywhere in town by myself in my bicycle, and like my BMX type bicycle.
Hell yeah.
And
We hitting jumps or what?
I started when I was probably 8. I started hitting jumps.
Nice.
But the interesting thing is that, once you're done, you got home from school, you're done with your homework, and you wanted to play, right? You had to literally hop on your BMX and then go knock on your friends' doors, just see who was available, who wanted to play, who did. Like, there's no phones. Right?
Yeah,
that was the best.
We're in that town. If you wanted to get a landline for a phone, not only was very expensive, so the parents did not allow the kids to use the phone because the cost of the phone service was very expensive. But it was a 3 to 4 year wait for you to get a landline in your house because infrastructure was still being built.
Yeah, do I dig the trench and lay the wires or
overhead?
Overhead,
Yeah,
okay.
putting the posts.
So my parents are Brazilian. I was born here in the U.S.
Okay. Which part?
I was born in New York.
New York.
My dad was actually a doctor as well. He came to medical school here.
Amazing.
And then when I was 7, we moved back to Brazil.
Okay.
So I spent 3 years in Brazil, just outside São Paulo in Campinas.
Yeah. Big town.
And I remember we spent 3 years there. And then when we came back and moved back to New York, and, I was like the Brazilian kid, like, oh, you live in the jungle. I'm like, I didn't live in the jungle in Brazil. I'm like, I lived in São Paulo. Like, this place is like, it was a metropolis, right? Like, it's massive. Like, you don't realize how urbanized, a place can be until you see São Paulo. Like it puts like New York to shame, right? Because it's like sprawl for miles and miles and miles and miles of just high rises. Yeah. But even back in the early 80s, Brazil was very underdeveloped, right? Like there was certain areas of development, and that was really São Paulo, Rio, and
Belo Horizonte to some extent,
but beyond that, it was super rustic. And where you were was like another level of rustic. Like it was completely virgin territory in Brazil still.
Yeah, when we once a year we would travel to go visit family in São Paulo because all of my uncles, aunts, right, grandparents, they all stayed in São Paulo, and we would have to hop on a bus, right, for 3 days straight.
Wow.
In a bus, just like hitting town by town, stopping, having breakfast, lunch, dinner.
That's crazy.
Like in roadside restaurants, whatever, until you got to São Paulo. That was crazy.
3 days to Sao Paulo.
3 days to São Paulo, 2 days to where my father 2.5 days to São Paulo, 2 days to where my father grew up. So, and that was once a year, going there, coming back. I mean, it's the kind of stuff that you can't really...
Is that because the roads do you have to drive slow or...
You had to drive slow, the roads were poor, the sheer distance is almost
People don't realize how big Brazil is. It's insane. Like
it was almost the equivalent of going, not from Florida to California, but maybe from Florida to like Nevada, right? Or Arizona, right?
Yeah, that's crazy.
I mean, pretty far.
Oh, yeah.
So, but look, I mean, the memories and the stuff that sort of kind of eventually translates into your personality and your ability to like, solve things and like, I mean, I really appreciate having had that background.
That's so cool.
So were you a farmhand or a cattle hand?
Yeah. I mean, I I'm not gonna brag too much, but I pretty much can. I competed in rope racing.
Oh yeah.
Barrel racing.
Oh, dope.
All the way up until 15.
Wow.
So I can ride a horse fairly okay. And working with cattle.
It's a fucking modern day cowboy.
Yeah, we should get him into a rodeo. The Integra rodeo. That could be a thing. I'd love to see some of those analysts try to rope a calf. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. I would love to see that.
So what was your first job? I think I saw somewhere it sounds like it was a cattle hand, but I saw a newspaper boy.
Yes, I had a few different gigs when I was growing up, and I basically, when I was in 5th grade, I decided I had a neighbor, and it's kind of funny how some things you don't really like when you're in that setting, which is the one of the things that I appreciate the most, right? Everybody there is equal, no matter what your parents do, right? Like sort of from an economic perspective, like there's no judgment, right? Like you're playing soccer with right, like in your day to day,
Yeah.
right? While we live here in a world that's very different, and in some ways a little bit unfortunate, right? People are like, oh, what car do you drive? Where do you live? Or which neighborhood you're in, right? But when you're in that setting, everybody's the same. And so I realized that I had a neighbor in my street that, the kid was studying, going to school in the afternoon, so that in the morning, he would wake up very early, and he would go to a newspaper distributorship. He would get a massive stack of newspapers, put it on the back of his bicycle, and start going and selling newspapers around town, right? And making a margin between the cost that we would have to pay the distributor versus what you'd sell on the streets. And now he was doing it because he needed to help his household, right, pay the bills and survive. But I said, oh, that's interesting. If he's doing it, why can't I, right? Like I'm going to do just the same. So I transferred from a morning school setting to an afternoon. So I would start school at 1:30 in the afternoon.
Oh, wow.
And go until 6 p.m. so that I could wake up in the morning, right? Newspapers, you got to sell first thing in the day, right? So anyway, so 5:30 in the morning, I would, be at the distributorship. I put a little a rack in my bike, and I would start hitting town, going to
Bike during the day. You still ride?
I do, but mountain biking now is my favorite.
Mountain biking?
Mountain biking.
Oh,
yeah.
cool. I'm a mountain biker too.
Yeah.
You hit Virginia Key?
Virginia Key. Yeah.
All right. We're going to have to go hit the trails there.
Yeah.
I'll probably go on Sunday. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me know. Because I always enjoy going out. But my real hobby is motocross, though. So that's a whole nother. Yeah.
Ben likes to do that too.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So we'll
get into that for sure.
But that was my first job. I used to help my dad also sell some of the farm goods, right? Like we would produce cheese. We'd had a lot of fruit, avocado, all sorts of, papaya, that kind of stuff that he would bring back from the farm. And then when it was season for something, I had like a clientele, some customers that I would go deliver to their homes, right? And I wish I wish I was a little bit wiser in technology, because maybe the DoorDash.
I was going to say,
like it could be
DoorDash.
Yeah, pre DoorDash or pre
organic avocados to your door. That sounds like a startup.
Yeah. So
So what motivated you to want to do these jobs? Like, were you trying to save money for something, or what was the?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't. Look, I was fortunate and blessed not to have the need from from my parents. Right? They
Doctors,
they did fine.
Yeah, they live
relatively
a good lifestyle compared to the rest of the population.
Relatively speaking, they always did all right. So, but it was just like it was nice not to, if I wanted to, and back in those days, if I wanted to buy a toy, a video game, or whatever, not to have to depend on them.
Totally.
And then I started actually saving. Right, I started saving, and it's funny, by 1991. So 1990, this is now. I started taking some of my savings money and giving it to my dad, so that my dad would buy, either sell me some of his cattle or buy cattle for me, right? And he was nice enough not to charge me overhead on the farm or a rent, so my exponential growth was pretty fast. But in 1991, I'm never gonna forget this, and this is how good some of the good stories. 1991, I was 13 years old, and I had 200 head of cattle.
Oh wow,
of my own, right?
Wow.
Off of the savings of all of the right, and it was very cool. And he got an opportunity to buy a bigger house, right? And I remember to this day that he walked in and he's like, I got good news and some bad news, right? And I say this to my kids all the time, like the same sort of approach to things. I go, what's the good news? He's like, well, we have this opportunity to acquire, to buy a bigger home for us to move into a cool place. This home in, the whole city, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, Dad, really? That's awesome. I mean, really? I mean, you think we can afford it? It's like, yeah, I think we can, but remember those 200 heads of cattle that you?
Oh no,
those are going to be gone. They're getting liquidated.
Then you were like, well, I get equity in the house then, right?
And sure enough, we had to sell them. But anyways, it's just a lot of good stories. And even when I moved to the U.S., right, my first year.
So let's talk about that a little bit.
Sure.
I mean, so you moved to the U.S.
Yeah.
How old were you?
I had just turned 15.
And this was an intercambio.
No.
Okay.
We had some family friends.
So just to back it up, because in Brazil it's very popular that they call this an intercambio. It's basically a student exchange where a host family in the United States will open up their doors for a Brazilian or whatever country, and they'll spend a year or two living with a family, and it's usually very like remote areas, like where Ben grew up, like really like a shitty area. Sorry, Ben. Ben, you know what they say in real estate: if people don't know you, they're not doing business with you.
Exactly. That's why the Built World podcast works with top of mind public relations, because being a best kept secret sure doesn't pay the bills.
Paula Uspa Abbott, the brains behind Top of Mind PR, is a former real estate journalist, so she knows exactly what makes the media pay attention.
And let's be real, getting in the press isn't just about bragging rights. It's about building credibility, landing deals, and making sure the right people know your name.
Whether it's top-tier media coverage, killer storytelling, or just making sure you're the one people think of first, Top of Mind PR has you covered.
Want to stand out? Hit up topofmind-pr.com or email info@topofmind-pr.com.
Because in real estate, if you're not visible, you're invisible. And it's like it's you really get to grow up in Americana, so that's why I asked. So you came here for another reason.
Yeah, it was a little bit easier in that sense. So we had some family friends that the husband is also a doctor that still lives here and practices medicine. He had come. He was graduated in Campinas from Unicamp.
Okay,
that was his radiology, and he moved to the U.S. to actually get, similar to how your father came, to get his
graduate medical school
diploma recertified here to be able to work here. And he was in that process, and they knew that they were going to be here for one more year, and they weren't sure if he was going to be able to get a residency slot somewhere, have to go back to Brazil. They really didn't know what the future was going to hold for them, but they knew they had one more year, at least one more year here in the U.S. That translated into them being here until this day, so it all worked out well. But they knew I was always very interested in the language, right, in learning English. So when I was about 7 years old in my little town, I started studying English, right?
Yeah, your English is excellent.
Oh, thank you. I still catch myself with a little bit of an accent here and there, but I appreciate that. So they called my parents up, family friends, and said, look, we're going to be here for another year, and if Nelson wants to, learn the language, why don't you send him over? He can stay with us. And learned, get the experience.
And
right?
Sorry, how old were you? 14, 15?
14 to 15. Yeah.
And where did you move to?
So moved to Deerfield Beach.
Okay.
And they enrolled me in a private Catholic school, Cardinal Gibbons High School in Fort Lauderdale. That was also a fun experience. So
that must have been a little bit of a shock, right? From small town Brazil to Deerfield Beach.
Yeah, it was a shock. And the high school, right, going from a school that my class alone, and I started, funny enough, when I arrived, they took a look at what I had already studied up through 8th grade, and they said, oh, you don't need to do freshman year, so you can go ahead and jump and start in sophomore year.
Oh, wow.
So I started in sophomore year, but my sophomore year class was bigger than my entire high school, or my middle school and my high school combined, right over there. So like, sure, my God, what? You actually have a gym in your school? Like, we don't have one of these in the whole town, right? So very, very unique. But
had you traveled much outside of the country?
Never.
Oh, really? It was your first time?
Yeah, I had never traveled outside of the country, and I had. And to be honest, I hadn't really traveled much in Brazil outside of São Paulo, Mato Grosso, and our state, right, which are the states that kind of connect to go from where my parents are from and where we lived. So very little travel experience up until that point. And but it was cool. And so I lived with this family for 1 year. And after that first year, the family got an opportunity to do a fellowship, which later became a residency in South Carolina, and then moved to Michigan.
We're in South Carolina.
Charleston.
Okay, that's a cool town.
It was a cool town. But what happened was, I go back to, they had no idea of what was going to be their future. I go back to Brazil for the summer of my sophomore year to my junior year, right? So I'm there in summer vacation. And then they call me up and they're like, oh, we have this opportunity to move to South Carolina, right? And they didn't know what the future was going to hold for them. So I basically had to decide, what do I do next? At that same time, fortunately, my high school offered me a scholarship to come back and not have to pay tuition, right? So imagine between reais and the dollar, right? Like tuition back then, just as a parenthesis, $454 a month, right?
Wow.
For a high school, like, which in this day and age, I'm sure they probably charge, $4,000 or $5,000. So how things have evolved between 1993 and now. But anyways, so, they helped me secure, a bedroom in someone else's home, for my junior and senior year. So I came back, basically on my own, but I came back, I continued at, the same high school because they gave me the scholarship, and it was a cheaper, a way to live and continue studying.
What were you good at in high school?
In high school, academically, you mean?
Yeah.
English was probably the hardest, right? Because you're right, like all of the reading and the writing, but all of the science, math, right? Physics, just all of that stuff came pretty easy to me. But I did okay academically, So they offered me the scholarship, and I played sports also. It wasn't for the sports only. I played volleyball, soccer, basketball, football,
Please.
But so that was
So you graduated high school, and what was next? Did you have an idea of where you wanted to go or what you wanted to do?
No, I mean, the big decision was, am I going to go back to Brazil, right? Because again, I was here by myself. This family that I lived with.
You have siblings or no?
I do. I have one sister that's 1 year younger.
Okay.
And she actually moved from our town to Campinas to do her pre-college prep. Like they usually do like 1 year of for you to take the college exams.
Mm-hmm.
After, in Brazil, it's very common for students to finish high school and then like really study hard for the equivalent of the SATs, right?
Sure.
Over there. So my big decision was, what am I going to do? Am I going to go back? Am I going to stay here? So I decided, in the end of the junior year, beginning of senior year, I just said, let me apply for the colleges, right? And see what happens. Maybe I have an opportunity to, study here. So we'll evaluate depending on what comes. So I applied to a variety of colleges. Places that I had never even visited, like University of Colorado.
Sure.
It's just crazy, Wake Forest. I didn't even know where it was located, but I had heard it was a good school. So I'm like, why not? And through that process, was accepted at University of Miami, but also was offered a scholarship to go to University of Miami. So for me, financially, right, that was, and I started, with the mindset of going to medical school eventually, right? Because my parents were doctors, and it was too early, right? I was 17 at the time. I said, so I did first year of biomedical engineering at UM, and UM has a great medical school. So I said, great school for the path that I wanted to follow. And then in my first summer, I decided, after 1 year of biomedical engineering, I decided to take business courses as electives, right? I said, I know nothing about, finance, economics, management, marketing, whatever. Let me,
Check it out. Yeah.
check it out, dabble into some of those, sort of, electives.
I think that's the best way to learn, right? You kind of follow, like, I'm going to check out this class. It looks interesting. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, this is cool. Let me test this other class. And, that you got to experiment.
Yeah. And then, I mean, the minute I started, right, taking those courses, I was like, wow, I even enjoyed business law, right?
Yeah,
I mean, believe it or not, I was like, this is cool. I like to figure out how things are priced, the marketing, the packaging, right, all of the things that we learn in business school, right? So I changed majors, transitioned, and kept going. So it was Yeah.
And then you got a master's in engineering, didn't you, from
I did.
FIU?
FIU. So that was more of a, and great experience as well. FIU, I mean, believe it or not, for those who may not know, for us in the construction field, we acknowledge how great the academic institution is, but it has a very well-regarded, school of engineering, and especially for construction management, nationwide, right? It's really highly regarded.
And did you go to that for that, or?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah. So when I probably was six years into my professional career, 6-7 years into my professional career, and I was already working in a construction company. I figured, well, I did business, right, for undergrad. Probably makes sense to get a little bit more of an academic background in the construction side as well. So applied for the master's in engineering, for the construction management discipline. And it was fun. I did it over the course of 2 years because I was working full-time at the same time.
So where did you go once you graduated? What was your...
I was hired by a company.
UM, I'm talking. Like, what did you...
from UM.
Yeah.
So when I graduated from UM, I was hired. That's also another funny story. But I was hired by a company that is, at the time, they may still be a Fortune 500 company. Haven't checked in a while, but Fortune 500 company, largest manufacturer of Formica laminate flooring, some countertop materials in the world, right? And this company, they had their manufacturing facilities in Texas and in some other places, presence in 5 different countries with manufacturing facilities, distribution centers all over the world.
And I'm sorry, when did you graduate from UM?
1999.
Okay.
Started in 96, graduated in 99. So, so I basically got hired by them to go through a management training program, which was also awesome, right? Because I was in the factory learning manufacturing. I was in distribution facilities learning about logistics. In the marketing department, learning about marketing. So I worked with them for about 2.5 years, and it was great because I got the chance to travel a little, right? Ended up working in their business development division as a permanent job after 6 months or so on rotations, and so I had some clients like Home Depot, Lowe's, Lennar, U.S. Homes, right? The D.R. Hortons D.R. Horton wasn't one of them specifically, but that kind of Toll Brothers, right?
Sure.
Became clients. So as a business developer, I started visiting, construction sites, sales centers, right? Learning a little bit more about that side of the business, and and at that time, from the perspective of a material supplier, and about 3 years later, I decided that really enjoyed the company. It was a great place, but just figured that I didn't want to continue down the corporate path, right? Like I wanted to try to do something, for myself. So I entered into a partnership with a Brazilian kitchen cabinet and closets, manufacturer.
Before, just really quick to interrupt you.
Yeah.
What about the corporate world didn't sit right with you? What made you just be like, I gotta get out of here?
Great question. It was a combination of a few things. My first year with that firm was so incredible in the sense that I was working in the headquarters and kind of reporting almost directly to the whatever we call today the C-suite, or right? Like
sure.
I wasn't reporting to the CEO, but the chief marketing officer was a very influential guy in this company.
Can you say what the name of the company was?
Wilson Art International. Again, continues to be the leader in that industry.
Oh, what an amazing experience, huh?
Yeah.
To be able to, at that young age, working with C-suite people.
I was 20 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, and in hindsight, the program that they had was amazing. I came in as one of 8 peers, right? From different colleges, but everybody graduating undergrad, and so we were 8 of us, and then each one got shipped to a different place. And one of my very close friends to this day now is an attorney, and I met during those days, but it was exhilarating, right? Like you're working with a super high level of leadership and decision making and the things that you're involved in. And it was very, very, it was just awesome. when I got shipped to a permanent position in one of the distribution centers, right? It was fun. I had a chance to work in Seattle a little bit, and then Arizona, spent some time there, and then eventually got back here to Miami and worked for their distribution centers here. The level of, from my perspective as a young, young professional, trying to learn and absorb as much as I could from everybody around me, right? I started again, no disrespect to anybody at the more the regional level, but that transition for me was almost deflating, right? Because you go from, imagine like you're playing with, you go play with the all-star team, and then, the next thing you know, you're like playing pickup basketball again with, just run an analogy. Even though there were some great people, but just it wasn't that, the adrenaline, right?
It's like you're playing your beach tennis, and all of a sudden you're playing pickleball, right?
We got, that is that is a great analogy. That's right. That's exactly right. And believe it or not, like I have some friends at Integra, some of our folks at Integra play pickleball, and
you can't take those people seriously. Right?
No.
I mean, when someone tells me they play pickleball, I'm like, fuck this guy.
Even though in two of our developments we're developing pickleball, we love everybody, right? So we're developing pickleball courts.
I think you guys got to put some beach tennis courts in there.
Hey, I have a location. All I gotta say is I have a crazy location.
Well, we should talk about this because I think there's a huge opportunity for beach tennis courts here in Miami.
I have a location. We'll talk about.
All right, I like this.
So I feel like that was maybe if the path had been reversed, right, where I had started at a regional level and then kind of like keeping up with the momentum, that would have been different. I also didn't, like you start understanding that there's politics, right? Like big companies, there's a lot of politics, and who can you report to, and who, and not to completely segue here, but a huge thing about our company, right, at Integra from day one, and then I went to, eventually I made my way to a small general contracting firm here that was involved in very large projects. So that was very exciting. But being part of a small team, a small firm, right? Like you got to handle everything. You got to be involved in everything. There's no layers of like reporting, no BS, right? You don't have time for that stuff. And it's all about getting stuff done, right? And
well, that's what I was going to kind of say is at those big companies, sometimes it's less about your abilities or actually doing things and more about how do you play the game within the corporate structure, who likes you, are you doing the things they like. It's less about actually execution and more about like the politics of it, which that's for me, that's what's tough.
No, and Ben, I mean, that is so true. Even in for that short period of time, right? Like I could see I could get along well with all of my superiors and peers, right? So I was progressing, but some of my in that group of 8, I had some buddies who were very talented people that just weren't motivated in the right way and didn't want to play that game, and they didn't survive, right? Or like very so. For me, it was it was a little bit of that, right? Like I remember myself spending hours a week like putting together reports of all of the sales calls that I did, but like I already did the sales calls, like the numbers are there. Like why do I need to keep telling, right? Like so. Anyways, but yeah,
you went to a kitchen cabinet supplier after that, you said, or you did a deal with them.
So I worked out a partner, which was.
By the way, did you quit and then figure it out, or did you already have it figured out before you quit?
I quit.
So full like base jump, like let's figure this out on the way down.
I saved enough, a little bit of money, not a ton, right?
Your cattle were gone, so.
So wait, you're living in Miami. What year is this?
This is 2001.
Okay,
around 2001.
And you're single and living in Miami.
Single.
Where are you living in Miami?
I lived briefly during those days in Sunny Isles before Sunny Isles.
What's Sunny Isles?
But it was fun.
Yeah,
it was nice. I was very frequently one would find me in South Beach in those days.
Of course, yeah, those were the days.
I was living on South Beach in
Ireland in South Beach.
2002 is when I said. Yeah.
Amazing, right? Like, and if
those are the best days.
If we could create a memory lane and take some of the people that didn't get to town until maybe 2010 and like show what the late 90s and all the way through early mid 2000s, like Washington Avenue, right? Like that was it was incredible.
All right, I'm hesitant to even share this next sponsor because honestly, it's going to make our competition even tougher. This is some real insider intel.
Yeah, if you're in commercial real estate and still buried in spreadsheets and busy work, listen up because CRA Task Wizard is about to change your life. It changed ours.
This isn't some generic virtual assistant service. CRE TaskWizard was founded by former brokers Elijah and Kevin, so they actually get what brokers need.
Which is less admin, more deal making. Your teams handle research, data entry, listing management, lease abstracts, basically all the annoying stuff that eats up your day and nobody likes to do.
Imagine not having to update listings, dig through lease terms ever again. Even cold calling, you can focus on closing deals. They handle the rest.
And the best part, it's efficient, affordable, and built specifically for CRE brokers.
Want to reclaim your time and make more money? Go to CRETaskWizard.com and let the wizard work its magic.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, living modestly, right? But like in Sunny Isles, I figured that if I didn't jump, right, I had a corporate car, I had a corporate cell phone, and right, I saved enough money to like buy myself 6 months to a year, right? And I said, you know what, I have to take the leap of faith here and go do it. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to do it.
So you quit without knowing what you were going to do.
Without no idea, right? And it was kind of weird, because I wasn't so sure if my decision was based in my circumstance at the company at the time, or if it was meaning my desire to follow a path that wasn't the corporate path was just based on that company, right? And maybe at a new company, like I interviewed with IBM, I interviewed with, because I'm like, maybe I'll find a cool corporate setting where it's a little bit different and I could be, right, enticed and excited and it's a little safer, right, than starting your own thing. So I was exploring all options, right? And in one of my trips to Brazil, naturally, right, especially back then, like not everybody spoke, English pretty fluently, right? And the fact that I had lived here, the experience that I had in the U.S., and especially in this industry, right, the construction / real estate, I had the opportunity. I kind of, through some family members that knew and had a relationship with this factory, very large European-style cabinet, supplier and manufacturer in Brazil, were able to structure a partnership. So I became their U.S. representative, working, and then by that time I actually lived in a friend's house for 6 months, a friend of mine who now lives in California, but friend from high school and college we studied together, a very close friend. I lived in his house for 6 months. The first 6 months that I was trying to like get back, get this company going. Then I rented an apartment in Pembroke Pines where I lived for 2 years. Then I moved to Miami Lakes. But for the first year and a half, 2 years of the company, I was working out of my one bedroom, that was my office. That was my, walking around town, knocking on the developers' doors, trying to meet everybody, GCs, developers, with basically just some brochures under my arms,
just door knocking and hustling, talking to developers. Hey,
Yeah.
you guys need these kitchen cabinets in your developments.
Yep.
We're there. So this is something that I often forget in the podcast to visit with our guests is, the hard times. Because a lot of times, when someone's successful, we talk about their story, it sounds so easy. It sounds up and to the right the whole time, but it's never like that. There's often like existential crises, like littered throughout the journey. Was this one of those? Did you ever have a time like, oh shit, what did I do? Like, was this, or did you kind of hit the ground running hard enough that you were like, okay, we'll figure this out?
Yeah, no, I think it took me about 9 months to secure the first project.
Wow.
Right. And I had some limitations, right? The factory was in Brazil. I didn't have a retail operation. I couldn't sell like a one home, right? I had to sell at least a container load, and a container load was about 40 kitchens, right? So that was my minimum.
40 kitchens.
I had to, and try to convince somebody who has a 40 or 50 or 100 or right unit project that this guy who has never assembled an IKEA, and I'm joking because I did some training in the factory before I came over to try to then be the expert training the installers here.
Right.
But the point is, like, I had nothing to show, right? I didn't have like any track record, so it's hard, right, to convince somebody, especially with those type of volumes that So it took me about 9 months. At month 6, I was like, oh man, shit, am I gonna have a breakthrough here? And then came across an individual that took a lot of faith in me. His name is Jim Dobson. He's still around I think he's still around the business. And he was working at a company that's no longer in this market called D.H. Griffin, was a general contractor, back in those days. That they had a 160 unit apartment and townhome combination project called Pineapple Grove in Delray Beach.
New construction.
New construction, right? And they, and I am sure, they didn't disclose that, of course, but I'm sure I was probably like undercutting, underpricing, right? Like the only reason why they gave me the job is because I was probably the cheapest by far. By far, they're like, we gotta take a gamble on this guy, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, there's no reason, right?
You unknowingly underbid your competition.
Yeah, unknowingly, right? Because I had no idea. I didn't even know. I didn't know an installer. I didn't even know how much it was effectively going to cost me to install these things. I'm like, listen, I got to secure my first job, and then I'm going to figure it out.
Because this is early 2000s, right?
Early
And so, like, where are kitchen cabinets being manufactured? Probably within the United States. So China was definitely not happening yet.
So it was China was at that specific moment in time. China was not happening.
Yeah.
There were two manufacturing facilities in Medley, Hialeah, that were pretty much supplying all of the affordable / workforce / our multifamily, what we know today as multifamily in general. Those companies were, it was almost like a monopoly, right? Like they had the market locked down. There was occasionally you'd see a project or two. There's a company out of Texas that would ship these boxes already assembled, ready to go, and straight to the job site. That would kind of take a little bit of a percentage of the market. When you started to get into a little bit of the higher end products, there's Canadian and some European brands, that were dabbling into the market as well.
So how long were you selling these kitchen cabinets?
How long did I?
Yeah.
For how long did I?
Yeah. How many years were you doing this?
So for about 4 or 5 years.
Oh, okay. Good amount of time.
So quick question. So basically, like this 160 unit development, Del Rey, they hand you the plans. These are the measurements for all 160 kitchens.
Yeah.
You send that to Brazil. They cut it.
Yeah.
And then you just assemble the kitchen here in the US.
They sent it flat pack, almost like you get an IKEA furniture, right? They ship it in the container. I had to unload it. I had to rent a small warehouse to unload all of that stuff, assemble it. Then I'd put it in the back, me physically. I'd load it up.
You assembled all of this?
With some help. I didn't assemble all of them, but there were nights where I was through the night, assembling cabinets, loading the trucks that I rented from budget rental trucks.
Dang. We know how to call when we need IKEA furniture. Built our house out.
Oh, I got that secured.
He's got an engineering degree and tons of experience.
Yeah, just banging them out.
And so one of the cool things about life, right, is that in that project, the superintendent that was in charge of that project, I'm talking about 2001, 24 years ago, for the past 10 years, he's been working at Integra with us.
Oh, wow.
The same the first superintendent that was my boss,
that's cool.
At the client, relationship. But, and the funniest thing was, this guy's incredible. His name is Danny Kelly. And he's a machine, right? So like as a subcontractor, like, if you told him I'm going to be there tomorrow at 7 a.m., rest yourself for sure. At 5 a.m., you're getting a phone call. Where are you? And you're like, Danny, I told you I was going to be there at 7 a.m. I know, but I just want to know, where are you? Because if you're not on the road, you're not going to be here, right? And I'm like, and I'm going to be there at 7. I'm going to be there at 7. I show up, and this image
is American times 7 or Brazilian times 7?
American times 7. So I have this image vividly in my mind to this day, right? I drive that day. I drove that truck, right, to the job site. It was the first delivery. I had to not only drive the truck, I had some helpers to unload and start installation and do all of this stuff. As I drive, I pull up, I park, Danny comes running at me and I'm like, you see, I told you, it's 7 a.m. I'm gonna, I told you I was gonna be here. I'm here, And he goes, you're scaring the shit out of me. And I go, what are you talking about? He goes, you're the owner of the company and you're goddamn driving the truck doing the delivery. Like, how are you gonna perform? I'm like, hey, Danny, trust me. My life depends on this. I got it. It's gonna happen, right? And to this day, you can tell he will tell you he had never had a better cabinet subcontractor in his life.
That's amazing. Did you make a big chunk of money on that deal, or
no, man? My gross profit margin on that deal to secure that deal was 9%. There's no way to. If I broke even, I was just paying bills, right? And hoping for. But it allowed me over the course of the 5 years that I worked in that business until I transitioned into the general contracting side, which was with a client, right? Like one of my cabinet clients invited me to be part of his company because we enjoyed working together.
That's how you got into the GC world.
So that's how I got into the GC world. But we probably did somewhere between 3,500 to 4,000 units in the state of Florida of cabinets. So, fairly good amount. That first one, I just needed to kind of like say, hey, I can do this, right? Show the market. And then the ones that followed worked out fairly decently financially. But the market was good. So the reason why I also decided to transition, so I started.
You hit the market at a good time too, right? I mean, 2002, 2003, 2004, like there's all this development happening.
So two things and a huge lesson learned for me as an entrepreneur, right? Like my business was heavily dependent on the exchange rate, right? And we don't control that because I was importing my product from Brazil. And if you remember in those days, Brazil was coming through a fairly good times, right? Where the economy was booming, a lot of wealth generation, and our exchange started gaining a lot of value. So my product started becoming very expensive.
Yep.
And at the same time, the Chinese suppliers started to come into the market, right? So I had very, competitive or cheap competition coming into the market. My product was becoming more expensive. I was, month by month.
The writing was on the wall.
The writing was on the wall, right? And then I told myself, man, if I can avoid not getting in business, in businesses that have such a macro level outside variables that I can't control, like exchange rate or policy, right? Governmental, even though we're in real estate and we don't control a lot of that, the regulatory side. That was a huge lesson learned, and I ended up transitioning. Finished all of my projects, closed the warehouse. I mean,
so you didn't sell the company. I
didn't sell the company. It was, I don't even think I was sophisticated enough business-wise to even think about selling the company at that time. Maybe in hindsight should have been a way to go. But no, I figured I enjoyed the construction world enough. It's so exciting, right? Like you're seeing buildings physically go up, and it's kind of even though there's a lot of headaches associated with it. But I figured, man, in this next opportunity, I'm going to learn more about the general, real estate development process, et cetera. And it was a great opportunity, and it kind of set the foundation for me to learn everything that I needed to for us to do what we do today at Integra, right?
So that was kind of the middle ground between cabinets and Integra, was the GC experience. And how many years did you do that for?
That was another 4 or 5 years.
And were you just coming on as like a salaried employee at that point?
Yeah.
Project manager, or what were you?
I was, we basically, there was so much happening in the market here, right, at that time. Probably a little bit of a different scale than now because the town has grown so much. But,
is that like 04, 05?
04, 05, 04, 05, 06, 07. And that we basically decided to have, the owner of the company, and the company is called South Point Construction, still in business to this day. So the principal, Miguel Baena, he was going to handle the general contracting part of the business, right? But he felt that there was opportunities to sort of serve the market as a owner's rep / consultant. And he figured that that was the division I was in charge of, right? So we had clients and we did both, and it was great because I could see things physically being built and help him with that. And at the same time, we were able to get involved in projects that were much larger than, our firm was small, right? But we were providing consulting services to some of the large developments here. One of the first ones that I got involved was a condo project in Fort Lauderdale with 2 24-story towers, 334 units combined, right on the river, right?
So you were the owner's rep for that?
I was the consultant / owner's rep.
It's a pretty exciting project to jump into.
So that was very cool.
That was Symphony?
That was Symphony. Yeah. Oh, you got a lot of...
I got some notes.
You did some great homework there. I like that.
Try to do our research.
Yeah. I got some notes.
So Symphony Towers, amazing experience, right? As I came in and the relationship day one between the developer and the GC had gotten fractured just through the natural course of development. Is not a fun, it's not a pleasant, fun business, and normally, right, for the most part. So I came in and I still considered myself to know very little. Not that I know much now, but I was still young, right, in my career. I guess in those days, probably, 25, 26 years old, but had a little bit more of an experience from a subcontractor perspective.
You had a lot of experiences, yeah.
But not from the GC side, right? But it was all about people, right? People management, personality management, right?
Managing expectations,
managing processes, right? Holding people accountable. Had nothing to do with the technicalities of, do you know how many pounds per square feet of, or the PSI in this 3,000, this concrete pour in the rebar. that was irrelevant, right? Like the key thing was being able to get people to sort of bridge their gaps and work together to achieve a common goal, right?
Yeah.
And that was awesome. And I was like that psychologist in the middle of the parties.
That's like one of the probably the most valuable skill, which people don't really realize. That's one of the hardest things to do.
Yeah, it was amazing, and we finished the project very successfully. Great project, right? And that translated into an incredible relationship with the developer, who was Altman. Altman Development.
Altman companies.
Yeah,
They're still around, aren't they?
They're still around. Yep.
Big multifamily developer, right?
Big multifamily, and that translated into us doing a joint venture with them to build a condo for them, Sapphire, in Fort Lauderdale, and then a rental called Satori on Sunrise Boulevard in Fort Lauderdale, and then also helped them finish some of their other projects, right? So I worked with them very closely there, and that was another mini master's degree, right? Like observing a company of that size, right? Understanding the accounting, the project management, the organizational chart, who does what, right? All of that stuff was great for me to be able to learn, a little bit more about this business right before getting Integra going.
And what was the jumping point for Integra? Was that 08?
Yeah. So
okay.
So 08, we still, one of the exciting and right now it's an amazing project. It was tough for the original developers, but one of the projects that we were involved in, and I was there, 3-4 days a week, is the project that today became the Plaza, the incredible mixed-use project in Coral Gables, where you have the hotels and the restaurants and the Brazilian steakhouse, Fogo de Chão.
Yep.
I don't know if you've been there, right?
Yep.
So we were owners, representatives, consultants to the original developer that assembled all of that land. At the time, it was about 8 acres, right? And unfortunately, they got caught with the, that bad timing in the market, 2007. We started working together end of 06 through 07 and through 08.
Good time to be a consultant.
A great time to be a consultant. That's where...
First skin in the game.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's where I met my wife.
On that project?
Working together
Oh,
in
cool.
the project, yeah. We had already...
Is your wife Brazilian as well?
No, she was similar to you, born in the U.S., but from a Colombian family.
Okay.
But born here in Miami Beach. But she works in real estate and has always, at that time she was very focused on the marketing side. So she was the marketing director for the project, and I was, helping them with the construction. So, it was fun, right, to see these exciting projects. I mean, look at, of course, the ownership group that effectively developed the plaza. They modified the master plan a bit, but the origin, right, the roots of that project began all the way back then, and we were part of it. So that was exciting. And so when 08 came about, right, we, again, my hyper focus was on the construction side, and you could tell, even though you're in construction, you could tell that things were getting
things were starting to slow down.
The number of projects coming in through the door for estimating or it was just diminishing. I would participate, especially at this project. It used to be called Old Spanish Village before they changed the branding to the Plaza, but had a condo component, and I was there in all of the sales meetings, right? Just observing and being part of it and seeing that the sales just weren't coming in, right? I back then did not have, as precise of an understanding of what that meant from a capital stack, right? Deposits, buyer deposits, loans, securing the construction loan, as I do today, but it was interesting. So you could foresee a shift happening in the market. I don't think anyone anticipated, how abruptly that would have become, right? And it became very, very impactful in the market. So for me, I knew that things were going to become very challenging and interesting, right, in the construction side. And we were debating, right, Miguel and I, what are we going to do, as far as...
Who's Miguel?
Miguel is the owner of South Point Construction,
okay,
the construction company that I, at the time, was working for. And we were debating, what do we do, right? How do we reinvent ourselves? And ultimately, the strategy was, instead of competing with the large GCs for jobs that were out there, Miguel, for a while, basically turned the company into a shell subcontractor, right? It's like, I'm not going to compete with the Coastals, the Suffolks, the Moss, the Plazas, the JMAs. Those guys have a much, beefier infrastructure. They're much more capable than us. So I'm not going to fight for the same projects. Why don't I become subcontractor to them, and that's what he did. But at the same time, one of my closest friends, one of my best friends to this day, who is my business partner, Paulo Mello at Integra.
How did you guys meet?
We met in college.
He went to UM.
He went to UM, and the guy has a lot of white hair. So I joke every time I introduce him. I did that yesterday. I'm like, yeah, he was my professor. I was his student. But
You meet the old man.
yeah, but we met at UM, and we had just a great relationship. And kept in touch. We had been, just friends, and always, in our conversations, we always had the desire. You know how there's always somebody that you're like, oh man, at some point we need to do something together.
Totally. Yeah.
Like you always have those kind of conversations. Oh, let's do something together.
We can't just go clubbing together. We got to do something together, right?
And with him, actually, a funny side note, just to be able to
Give us the dirt on Paulo.
Yeah, I will. He may be embarrassed, and don't get me going on Victor, because there's a lot of dirty stories on Victor. But on Paulo, a fun fact is that the guy, like, he just has such an incredible musical talent. Even though I keep telling him, I'm like, dude, if I had your musical talents, I would quit real estate today, and I'd be like in Nashville in the streets, like trying to,
He plays instruments?
He plays but you put any instrument in front
Oh,
of him,
wow.
right? And if he's never played it, he would start playing something, right?
Yeah,
Like the
that's
guy's
cool.
that talented. So back in those days, a way to make a little bit of extra money. And I worked six days out of the week, right? 6 nights out of the week, I worked in an Italian restaurant to be able to make, just help live through college, right? So, but on Friday nights, we came up with we came up with a party right. So I would be the promoter with another friend of mine in college, and Paulo was our DJ.
Oh, that's nice.
But I'm telling you, it was the best party for Brazilians and Latins. It was the best party in town, right? We would shift like 3 to 4 months at a location, and then so we would approach business owners that had like bars that weren't like.
Because you and Paulo were like one of the first wave of like Brazilians moving to South Florida. I mean, that really didn't start happening until I feel like the probably like the mid 90s. I mean, New York, had a big Brazilian population moving there, but Florida, not so much. And I think Chicago probably a little bit, but a little bit of Texas maybe, but Florida wasn't that big, right?
Florida, so you had a fairly healthy Brazilian population in the Pompano Beach, the beach, that Boca area.
Yep.
In Miami, the ones that you would find were always associated with import and export, because remember,
That sounds so shady.
I know, right? No, but you guys, I don't know if you guys will. I mean, Ben, what year did you come to South Florida?
2010.
2010, yeah. So definitely you're not gonna be able to relate. But if you go down through downtown, right? Our offices they're in downtown, and you go down the streets, Flagler and all of that area. Not half. All of those retail places that are now finally repositioning themselves, but that have been shuttered for at least a decade.
Yeah.
Those were all import-export places that service South America, right?
Yeah.
Like, so you had shops of Argentinian, Colombians, Brazilians, right, that were catering to the tourists that would come to town. This is before, and what was the biggest shift, at least that I sort of associate. I feel like that entire ecosystem died down with the creation of the outlet malls, right? Because now a tourist comes to South Florida or to Florida, right, and he's like, oh, I got to take my kids to Orlando. And before Orlando had outlet malls, the Sawgrass Mills.
I was going to say, they get a suitcase and go to Sawgrass.
So you got a suitcase, you go to Sawgrass, and now you can go to the Dolphin Mall, or if you're in Orlando, there's plenty of options of outlet malls, but that's where you buy inexpensive stuff. Right?
Yeah.
The streets of downtown used to be the big outlet mall of the 90s, right? And the early 2000s, and then that started dying down. So you'd find some Brazilians that lived here doing that, and some Brazilians associated a little bit with the financial markets, but you didn't have Itaú back then. You didn't have Bradesco, Banco do Brasil, BBA. You didn't have any of these large financial institutions from Brazil, BTG, and amongst others, that now are here, right? So it was, I agree with you. You didn't have like this abundance of, Brazilian professionals
Yeah.
that lived here.
So you guys were throwing the Brazilian party.
So we threw the Brazilian party, and we would I'm telling you, we would find a spot that wasn't doing so well in number of attendees, right? And we'd say, hey, we'd like to lock down Friday night. We will keep the door, right? The money for we charge a door fee. You keep it and you operate the bar. We'll bring security. We'll keep the door and the music and the DJ, and we'll promote the spot. Just don't charge us rent, right? Because we didn't have money to pay rent. So
That's amazing.
so
Love the hustle.
So that's the beginning of the Integra. We got to bring that back, probably.
Yeah.
So the first spot was a place. Do you know it's shuttered now? But I think it's called Commodore Plaza in Coconut Grove.
Yeah.
So there's a bar on the second floor in the back of Commodore Plaza, right? So the first place was in an open setting, right? Like, and we started bringing in people. First night was like 150 people. The second Friday, 250. By the third Friday, we had 500 people showing up. Music, going.
What kind of music were you guys playing?
Brazilians are very big into sort of a club / not heavy techno,
Yeah.
right? But like club dancing, almost like the Europeans to a certain extent. This is before the real heavy techno, the stuff that you listen at Space, like that. It was more of a club music, and then eventually the audience started to we started to branch out and also promote to Latins. So we started kind of putting in some Latin music. This is before reggaeton, so we never, but a Ricky Martin song here and there, right? Just to have that Latin.
Let's go Shakira.
Yeah.
When I think of Brazilian techno, I'm just thinking of like Astrid Gilberto with like in the background.
Yeah. But have you heard of that guy called Alok, the Brazilian DJ?
No.
Very famous.
Yeah.
But it'd be the equivalent of who is I'm a little outdated.
Probably more like house music.
Yeah, kind of like house music.
loungy.
Yeah.
Loungy.
Yeah.
And the guy was great, so he was our DJ.
So that's how you know you're gonna be a good partner to do real estate with.
There you go.
Ben, you and I are all about prop tech. And if there's one tool we absolutely cannot live without for our commercial real estate brokerage business at Gridline Properties, it's Visda.
Absolutely. Vista is incredible. We use it every single day. And we're always wondering, how do they do this? Every evening we get an email from them with real-time closed transactions. No more waiting around for months for the property appraiser to finally update.
Yeah, whether you're doing industrial, retail, office, land deals, they have every closed transactions. And it's not just the speed, Ben. The details are on point. Seller and buyer info, contact details, phone numbers, emails, everything is accurate.
It's hands down our top prospecting tool to farm for warehouse deals in Hialeah. Visda keeps us one step ahead always. It's also the best way to search for comps when putting together opinions of values for clients.
Head on over to Visda.com and use code BuiltWorld and get 30 days free access today. VIZZDA.com. So what was Paulo doing when you guys...
So Paulo graduated. So when I was doing my undergrad at Paulo was doing his master's, so he's a little bit older than me. Once he graduated and he realized that his $200 a night DJing wasn't going to get him too far in life, he decided to. But that was the he actually went to work for Merrill Lynch as a financial advisor. And so he worked for Merrill Lynch for a few years. Similarly, decided like his family had a very large sugar and ethanol business in Brazil, and also a natural juice business in Brazil. So he decided to he left Merrill Lynch, decided to go back to work with the family. And then the family had a fairly sizable liquidity event in 2007. So when
Perfect timing.
Wow. Right? Brazil was doing great. The exchange rate was strong for us, right? Our currency was worth as much as it has been, as far as I can recall. Family sells their main operating business, and that's in 2007. 2008, they're kind of like strategizing as to what to do. They wanted to diversify into the U.S. By that time, they had already acquired a few, one-off properties, right? A property in Doral, a property here in West Brickell, right? Like they were starting to dabble into real estate investments. Paula and I get together, and we're always like, man, we got to do something together. And basically, towards the end of 2008, we kind of decided if there is a moment in time to enter the real estate market in a more of a structured, meaningful way, this is the time, right? And that meant him and I in a room about half of this one with 2 laptops. That was it. That was the company, right? But we went back and had a meeting with his family, sort of created a very simple form of a business plan as to what to do.
I mean, I think, sorry to interrupt you, but
Sure.
I always thought that there's a few firms like Integra, and I thought it's such a unique business model that's not so common, that you're essentially, and I'm putting words in your mouth, so correct me if I'm misunderstanding or miscategorizing, but it's almost like a private equity firm that's agnostic, but just does real estate, and you're willing to be opportunistic, you develop, asset class agnostic, and I think it's a really interesting model. It's like you guys massed, man, there are a lot of other groups there's a few groups like that, and I think it's a really interesting model and pretty amazing foresight at that time to have that strategy at such an opportunistic time in the market that we haven't seen since.
Yeah,
and what made you come up with
I need to hire Ben as our marketing spokesperson. he literally summarized our whole business model and vision, and better than I could. So we have some good other good friends. 13th Floor.
That's right. Yeah.
Terra does to some extent things similar.
They're more a pure luxury developer.
Yeah,
I could see you guys buying distressed notes, for example.
Oh, sure.
And I wouldn't necessarily expect Terra to do that.
Yeah. No, but yes, I agree. There's a few of us in this market that have the ability to do that. And I think it all goes back to the DNA, right? Like we kind of were born in a moment in time where the market was so chaotic, right? Like everything was distressed. Today you're being offered something at 50 cents on the dollar, but you had no idea if that asset was going to be worth 50 cents the day after you bought it, or maybe 30 or 25 or 10, right?
Back then the analogy was like trying to catch a falling knife.
Trying to catch a falling knife. That's exactly right. So we sat with Paulo's family, devised the strategy. At the time, we got started really with the objective of structuring or identifying and analyzing, structuring, and executing on acquisition strategies just for his family, right? But then, like 6 months into it, and we hadn't acquired anything. I'm like, Paulo, this is too massive of a world for us to try to embrace with. With one family, right? Like, even though they have been amazing and they are still, one of our main partners to this day, right? So that relationship has continued throughout time. But, when you're seeing the size of the deals, the quantity of deals, very quickly we're like, okay, eventually we're going to have to open up this platform, right, to other partners. And the first deal was done with the family only. From the second deal forward, right, we were able to start bringing in some additional families very organically, little by little, with all folks that we know very intimately.
Mostly Brazilian families or hodgepodge?
It's I'd say today the majority are Brazilian families, but there's a few outliers that naturally through the years, right?
What was the first deal?
First deal was a uncompleted condo development that failed on the water in Boynton Beach of 70 units. So imagine.
Was it completed or had
uncompleted?
Oh, wow,
like
that's
you're buying something that has like stucco in the walls, windows, and a roof, but no interiors done, just the framing and the partitions, no appliances. No, you don't know if the plumbing is going to be all clogged or if it's going to be well done. I mean, very.
And was that?
But their windows, elements weren't getting into the building.
No. The watertight, right? A watertight structure.
You bought the note or bought title?
Bought the title.
Okay.
So funny, $8.1 million acquisition, and then with the cost to complete, we had a budget of 15.5. We were able to deliver that for 15.2. So from our first job, we were $300,000 under budget.
That's awesome.
We they were large units, but we knew that there was no condo market, right? Like, so this is 2009, 10, right? So we basically converted into a luxury rental community. It leased up super fast because the views were beautiful on the water, right? And looking at the Intracoastal, but in a very open water location. And then 3 years later, we ended up selling it, believe it or not, to a condo converter who then converted it into a condo because the product was really...
The timing is right then.
The timing was right, and it worked out well. Second acquisition was in two different transactions with two different lenders. We bought 3 properties in the riverfront community, right here behind in the south. but on the river, where Mint, Ivy,
Yep.
Wind, and now the Faena is
Yep.
being developed. So those vacant lots we acquired
From the audio from the bank, or
from the
Okay.
bank. So that was in 2011, and we ended up selling those properties in 2013.
those are such fun years to do
actually,
deals. I feel like
2014, 3 years later. Yeah, and you had to. So as we're kind of figuring our what we're gonna do, right? Naturally, we had one of the things we're fortunate was always having the appetite to buy vacant land, right? Which not a lot of groups are set up to do, right? If you're a developer, you want to buy it when it's permit ready, right? You don't want to carry vacant land for a very long period of time, naturally. So we always, had the ability to, or the vision and the appetite to do that. So that's been very helpful. And we acquired, incredible sites. One as an example that gave rise to Aventura Park Square, right? The mixed-use project that we did in Aventura, which I think it's probably one of the greatest success stories of true mixed use. We have 6 different uses in that location, right? ALF, hotel, condos, Class A, office, medical office, parking garage, and retail, right? So in the same complex, all developed at the same time, not in phases, right? So that was a very cool story. So as the market started, and so to go back to your summary of Integra, Ben, the mindset has always been, we know we don't know it all, right? Like, for example, one of the asset classes that we were very shy in is hospitality, right? Like it's you got to know, how much you're going to be able to drive of your NOI out of F&B, right? As an example. And so we know
0.
Yeah, if you're
That's how you underwrite hospitality. Yes, it's 0.
Yeah, it's all gravy, right?
Yeah.
When it happens.
Yeah.
That's what we do to the fuel in the marina space. That's what we do to the fuel revenue,
Right.
And like the convenience store, we call it the ship store revenue, right? Like, no, discard that. I mean, we got. So, industrial, right? Industrial warehouses. I'm not going to say we'll never do one, but we don't necessarily have any sort of a competitive advantage in that space. But we've been able to, little by little, with that open mindset of, if we don't know something, maybe we can study it and learn, and right, if it makes sense, have the ability to embark on it. Little by little, we've been able to sort of expand our expertise through a few different asset classes that has made it for it to have been a pretty interesting journey so far, right? So nowadays we develop affordable housing, like, in the technical sense, right? Light tech. We do.
You guys still doing it, light tech, 9% deals?
Yeah, we just broke ground on a 270 unit light tech in Princeton, in Miami-Dade County.
Sure.
Unincorporated Dade, a little bit further south.
It's so hard to win those these days.
Yeah, but that one is a 4%, so it's non-competitive. Yeah, the 9% we've done, the last one we finished was probably 3 years ago in the Brownsville market over here. But yeah, so we do 9%, we do 4%. We also do workforce housing. We do luxury rentals. We do the condos.
You guys are strictly Florida?
We have one asset outside of Florida currently in the marina portfolio. Hoping to grow our presence outside of Florida in 2 categories, marinas, and we also, for the last 2 years, have really amped up our focus on acquisitions of existing multifamily. So those are the 2 asset classes that we are prospecting opportunities outside of Florida actively, right? But we have a marina in Rhode Island that's outside of Florida. The rest of the portfolio today is in Florida. Came very close to buying last year an asset in Atlanta, multifamily. Looked at a couple of things in Nashville. So we are learning those markets and getting ready to be able to expand.
When you first launched Integra, did the structure, was it different then than it is today? Like, did you go in being like, okay, this family's going to invest as LPs, we'll be the GP, we'll put in 10% or whatever, and then we get to promote on, whatever. Was it that traditional structure, or how did you guys? That's always an interesting angle, because no one really knows how to go from 0 to 1, or that's the hardest part to figure out.
As you can imagine, right? Your first deal You're similarly to how I had to have a gross profit margin of 9% of the first Canada deal, right? The first deal that you're doing on real estate where you're placing, equity or capital that's not your own, right? Like you're not going to get the most generous sort of
Terms.
fee structure,
Right.
terms, promote, right? So the first deal was a bit different. Again, for really my partner's family. The next one started mirroring a little bit more of the construct of what we know today, right? I'd say reduced fee structure, but it had a fee structure, had a promote structure, it had those kinds of incentives. And then little by little, as we started, building the track record, delivering the returns that our performers were showing, right? Like you are eventually able to position yourself a little bit more in line with the market. I still feel that today we're probably the how do you call it, the less fee rich, or the more we're very
More performance based, or
more performance based, but we're very good to our investors, right? I feel like as a company we kind of carried some of that early day, it's so our structure hasn't I mean it's very much in line with the market, but it's not super heavy on fees, it's not super heavy on promotes, it's on average in line with the market right today. And look, and the other cool thing about this, now we've been 2009 to today, call it almost 16 years, because we started in January of 2009. Six years later, I have a few examples of folks that have left our firm, right? Professionals that came in, spent a good amount of time with us, that have left to start up their own
Eduardo
ventures, right? Eduardo Taola, we met when he was there.
Yeah.
So Eduardo is an incredible, right? 7 years, and his first deal was with us, right?
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, we did a JV together because we knew how hard it was going to be to get started, right? And he's doing a phenomenal job out there. Getting involved in high quality projects that are all, I'm sure, going to succeed. Or won't disclose too much, but we continue to look at some things together.
That's great. That's unique, I feel.
Very much, right? But to us, it's, we're proud of the fact that, we feel like we added to his path of, going on in his own and kind of building his own platform. And he'll probably agree and tell you that, I'm sure his first deal with his investors were, a little more challenging.
Well, I ask because, I think a lot of times, a lot of mistakes that, early entrepreneurs make is maybe asking too much without knowing it.
Yes.
And they turn off the investors, and the investors are like, no, thanks, I'll pass.
Yeah.
And they're like, what did I do wrong? I'm just proposing market terms.
Yeah.
But they don't realize you really got to, eat shit on the first deal or take way less than you think you should.
Yeah.
And that's really what gets people, bought in, because it's a big risk with the unproven track record.
Yeah, that's right. And look, our business is so, we get into it and we partake in it, right? In our business, and it kind of it feels like it becomes second nature. But if we weren't so deep into our business, and imagine if you're like a technology guy, right? Or a farmer, and you're trying to understand the nuances of payment and performance bond, the GMP agreement, right? A guarantee. What's a non-recourse carve-out? What's an environmental indemnity? What do buyer deposits? What can you use? 10%, not 10%. Are you going to bond the deposits, right? Cap stack, mezzanine. That's not easy stuff to figure out, right? Like, even how to get started, right? In this business, I feel like there could be there's strategies and ways to maybe don't try to do the most complicated thing day one, right? Where you're going to need to depend on mezz and have a construction loan where the lender's going to be asking for all sorts of guarantees and a balance sheet in the back, and it's such a huge amount of equity, right? Like there's, right?
It's a gnarly business. Yeah, for sure.
And I don't know that a lot of folks that are, coming into the business have an appreciation for,
knowing all those,
where
all those, I don't know what the word is, but
yeah,
things you get caught up in.
Yeah.
So we were talking a bit before the pod about the current market today. I mean, you guys were born in like the most opportunistic time, and it almost felt like we were going to get that with COVID. I got really excited. I was like, yes, like here come the foreclosures. We're going to buy debt again. This is going to be awesome. Yeah. And then nothing happened, and it actually boomed.
Dr. Doomsday over here.
Dude, I'm just waiting. I had so much fun in it, right?
Yeah.
And nothing happened, and it feels like nothing has been happening. It's like the banks don't want to take The banks don't want to start foreclosure actions. They don't want the real estate, so they keep extending. The owners still want these crazy prices. They don't feel the pressure from the banks yet. Buyers know that those prices don't work, and we're all just stuck kind of. So where are you seeing opportunity today? Like, what's your take on today's market?
Yeah, and Ben, it's funny you bring up COVID, right? I think we were all, because of our origin and our DNA, we're all like, oh shit, this is gonna hurt, but at the same time, it's gonna bring incredible opportunities. So let's figure out how we get ready. And literally, I mean, looking back, I can't say that we didn't do anything. We were very quick to react and acquired a hotel in Miami Beach that actually had to shut down, and then the owners just couldn't carry the whole OPEX, right? Like all of the carrying costs without being operational. So we acquired it. We approved the renovation. We were going to reposition the asset. And then sure enough, as we're coming out of COVID a year and a half later, right? This is Miami Beach, so it took a little while to get the approvals.
Yeah.
A buyer came and just paid us a crazy number that was pretty much.
Which hotel can you say?
It's 6060 Indian Creek.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
It's small, right? 82 units. But so that was one opportunity that actually sort of kind of came about as a consequence of
perfect timing
of COVID. But that window was very narrow, right?
Like,
so that worked out, and I was also fortunate to buy the personal home where I live today. That was kind of like in that moment when the market was still in lockdown and prices,
debt was still cheap. Yeah,
there was a moment where the home market, right, like was favorable, right, and then once July or August
these New Yorkers started coming down.
That's right. Once July, August, September of 2020 came about, then the whole thing was out the window. But look, we have been in this sort of same pattern that you're describing, right? Like, I thought that 2023 we would have already started to see some, I'm not going to say blood in the streets, but opportunities that we hadn't seen up until then, right? And 2023, went by, and all we saw was a lot of cost escalation for construction, interest rates coming up, which makes it challenging for new developments to come off the ground, but not a flurry of the defaults and note sales and REOs and all of that stuff. 2024, kind of a similar story, right? And so interesting. If you look at transactional volumes, right? I think between 2023, 2024, we probably lost 80. You guys know better, but on the commercial, large size commercial, right, real estate transactions, the market probably lost 75% of the volume, right?
Definitely feels that way,
right?
Sure.
So I think that now, so in the middle of last year, I'd say, depending on the asset class, office, I do think that if you somehow have the appetite to acquire office buildings, right, you probably, especially markets like California, I think we are also living in an anomaly here in South Florida in the office market, because
we're in a bubble for sure.
We're in a bubble, right? For the most part, most office buildings of a good quality have been occupied and are performing. But you go outside of that, I think, some markets like New York, maybe Chicago, but especially California, right? Some opportunities, but it's not market wide, right? On the multifamily side, I almost feel like, we're seeing some interesting opportunities. The hard thing about it has been really predicting when we're going to have a clear path to rates coming down, right? Because it feels like that decision just keeps getting prolonged. But the number of opportunities that are out there, that are, recently finished, delivered projects or fairly recently delivered projects, that whether they secured short-term loans in, when the rates were floating rates, when the rates were low and now the rates came up and they're up for a refi, right? Whatever the circumstances, there are some opportunities out there that were like, man, I can't say that you're buying things that are obviously way below replacement cost, but things that are probably right there, marginally below replacement cost or at replacement cost, but already built, right? And just in some cases occupied in good markets, where you're like, shit, am I going to go through 3-4 years of development to then end up at the same basis of something that I can buy today with some cash flow, right? Just hoping for interest rates to come down. So we're seeing a fairly decent amount of those transactions. Not easy to raise capital against that, even though to me it makes all of the sense in the world, right? If I had an infinite pool of money sitting right in the bank, we probably would be buying all of it, because I think I think it's very downside protected. But on the other hand, institutional capital is still very cautious, right?
It's a herd mentality.
Yeah.
What's going on, Builties? Ben and Felipe here. I wanted to cut in and tell you guys what we're working on. Believe it or not, podcasting is not our full-time gig. We're commercial brokers here at Gridline Properties, focused on industrial. And we've really identified the submarkets of East Hialeah, Opelika, and Golden Glades.
Yeah, we're big believers in those areas. The industrial warehouse space has grown tremendously in the last few years, particularly out west. The developers have been building product in the 100,000 square foot range. These areas, particularly Opelika, East Hialeah, and Golden Glades, have smaller warehouses, and we think those are going to do extremely well in the next 10, 20, 30 years. There's always going to be a need for small businesses and smaller spaces close to the urban cores, so we're extremely laser focused on these areas. So if you have a warehouse in the area or looking to buy or lease, or if we can help you lease or sell your property, reach out to us.
Yeah, we're just seeing a lot of value in that area. Everyone's getting priced out of Doral, getting priced out of Little River and Wynwood, and Hialeah is kind of the last frontier. And it's a wild west out there. So come on for a ride with us. Hit us up.
As to when and how to enter the market at in a meaningful way. So it's interesting because
everybody wants to be contrarian until it's time to be contrarian, and that's scary.
That's right.
So it's and you obviously have the feeling for it because you guys were born in that era, so you know what that felt like. So it's a little bit different risk tolerance than probably the LPs do.
Yeah, I that's right. And the other, on the land side, right? Like land hasn't corrected, right?
Yep.
Even though the volume of transactions has dropped, right? Like nothing makes sense.
Yeah.
So what has to give? Construction cost is not going to go down.
Right.
Labor is what it is, and materials are not going backwards, right? So, land has to have some elasticity, right? We know of everything, it's the most elastic part of the cost component of a development. But here we are, and the market hasn't really shifted much. I feel like now maybe some people who are real sellers are probably realistic that, hey, if I want to hit that price, I'm going to probably need to wait around another year or two, and maybe I'm better off.
Taxes and insurance.
Insurance is right, and maybe I'm just better off letting it go. So I feel like that's shifting a little bit. But still, at large, the market, it's been interesting,
It's been weird. I mean, the scenario I just painted regarding like lenders not wanting to take them back is like hotels on the beach. I've seen a ton of hotels for sale on the beach recently, a ton. And you look at their P&Ls and they're all losing tons of money. Like $400,000 a year, $500,000 a year, $800,000 a year in the red. If you guys got to sell, but the lenders aren't breathing down their neck, so maybe they're, it's a weird scenario, and they still are holding high at these prices, these historical per door prices they want to get, and it's like, dude, the RevPAR isn't there to make this make sense, and we're all sitting here waiting for someone to cross that line.
Yeah, and cost of capital is way higher now, right?
Totally.
I mean, you guys are probably seeing this. The amount of folks who have shifted their efforts from the equity side to the debt, like the big funds, right? The big funds in allocation-wise, now they're disproportionate, right? The amount of money that they're trying to funnel through the debt side instead of the equity side, just because the returns are there. Right?
Yeah, they got a better LTV. Their risk profile is lower, and the returns are roughly equal. So why not do that?
Exactly.
Makes a lot of sense.
So
we didn't talk about dirt bikes.
Oh man,
how'd you get into dirt bikes?
How many hours do you have,
dude?
Oh man,
By the way, I saw a picture of you on a bike at a development site.
Oh yeah,
with Integra branded. It was so badass. I was like, is that your MO? Like when the site work starts going, you have them build a couple jumps so you can rip around. Or
I'll show you later because it's not gonna be doing justice here too because we got the mics and the. But I'll show you later. My bike, every time I pull up to a race, people are like, oh, shit, you have so many sponsors.
This guy must be really good.
I guess this guy must be the best. And then they see me take off, and they're like, oh, shit, what happened? But I got Integra logos there, Integra Marinas. I got the St. Regis Residences sticker right on the thing, and every single development, every single company, every single thing.
We got to sign a Built World Advisor sticker.
There we go. You see, send one out.
Yeah, so you send me the logo.
We need representation.
Yeah, and I guarantee you the sponsorship will be very cheap. So, man, it was one of those things. My first friend here in the U.S. when I moved, who just a great guy. He used to race road bikes, but like MotoGP type stuff.
Sure.
And he was becoming really good at that. And then his wife got pregnant.
Oh wow!
And then the wife said,
"That's it. Your career's over.
No more." Right? And he
Dirt bikes are
And-
more fun anyway.
Yeah, and then he said, "Look, I will stop racing and I will sell my street MotoGP whatever bike, but I have to have something on two wheels, right? So I'm gonna buy a dirt bike. They're not expensive, whatever." So he bought one. This is way back when. This is 2002, 2003. So I would go out with him occasionally, just ride around a little bit and whatever, and that was Then in 2006 we did a deal together, right? Where I basically referred him a deal that he did well. He made money on the deal, and then he bought a brand new motocross, a Suzuki, and gave me the bike as a gift, right?
Oh, that's
so
cool.
as a thank you to the So then we're like, oh shit, now I have a bike and we can ride together. We rode together a little bit in those days, 2006, 7. Then didn't ride for many years. And then and then he sold his bikes and all. We had some other friends that had the bikes. Everybody sold their bikes. And then in 2015, I have no idea what I was doing. I was driving up to Orlando, and I said to myself, shit, haven't been on a dirt bike in a while, right? It would kind of be fun to ride one. Let me call the dealers and see how much these things are even worth, right? So I call a dealer in Orlando, and then I call another in Tampa, and I negotiated. Like, it was at the end of the year. They were trying to, get rid of the old inventory.
Yeah.
So I negotiated for dirt cheap, 2 brand new, similar bike models, but one in Tampa, one in Orlando. Suzuki bikes also. And I negotiated. I bought 2, right? And I gave him one, and I kept one for myself.
That's amazing.
That's 15. So, I give him, we ride around once, and then nothing else happens. And then the guy calls me one day. He's like, bro, you're not going to believe. I'm like, what? He goes, I was like browsing on the internet, and I found out that there's a championship for motocross racing, right? Like enduro. I mean, there's also championships for the jumping, right? The real motocross.
Moto, yeah.
Yeah. But he's like, there's all of these guys competing in this, enduro series,
yeah.
right? Like in the southeast of the U.S., and there's a Florida series, whatever. And I signed myself up. I went out there, and I'm like, I'm like, you just went and you raced? He's like, yeah, man, it was the best thing ever. I'm like, how'd you do? He's like, yeah, I won the race. It's one of those guys, right? He's such an athlete. And he's like, and you got to go in the next one, right? So he signs me up, and then I go. Of course, I do not win the race.
Enduro's gnarly. That's hard. Enduro's there's no jumps, but it's a lot of just like dealing with really nasty terrain, like rocks, logs.
It's like cross country riding, right?
Cross country,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and usually on trails, but sometimes they're very tight. They're technical. There's up, down.
Yeah.
You go through rivers, mud, rocks, this and that, and whatever. So he
How long is the race?
the races are 2 hours.
Yeah.
Right, in our age group, and or if you do the one that we like to do the most, which is everybody takes off together and you're racing nonstop, right? There's other types of enduros that you basically you race in phases, like 45 minutes to an hour chunks. Those can last 4.5 hours. I've done those races in Georgia, South Carolina.
It's exhausting.
4.5 hours, it's crazy.
What kind of bikes? 450s?
So I actually ride 350s.
Okay.
A lot of people ride 250s, 300s, or 350s.
4-strokes all now, right?
The 300s are 2 strokes
Oh,
because
cool.
they're a little bit more nimble. So I got started in 16. Then I broke my arm in the end of 16. That was not a great conversation with the wife. Right back 2 days before a trip to Europe, just me and her. Right, so imagine that was not fun. I had to cancel the trip, and
Or bikes all
You
do
should have
that.
just made her carry your bags for you. Oh my god, babe, I can't do anything.
Oh, I don't even think she went to pick me up from the surgery in the hospital. I have a massive
Call it Uber.
plate. Yeah, she's like, yeah, you can deal with an Uber. But no. So then so I had to take a year off for the arm to recover. 18 was really the year where I really got serious and making all of the races in the series, and in my entry level class, 2022, I won the state championship.
Oh, amazing.
Cool.
Yeah, so that was fun. Now I'm in a higher class, which I am far from winning that championship. Maybe one day I gotta keep practicing, but it's so awesome, man. You go, and now my son is 7, so for now about 2 years he's been racing as well.
Do you have a little 50 or
He
what?
has the equivalent. It's
Okay.
an electric, but as powerful
Okay.
as a 50 and the same size. But the great thing about it, there's so many. First of all, I do feel like, especially if any one of us, right? And you with the beach tennis, you probably can relate well, and you with the motocross as well, Ben. And I want to hear about your experiences with the motocross. But like, if you've done anything competitive in your life, like when you're young, right? Like even as you're maturing, aging, whatever you call it, like to me, I feel like it's kind of important to keep, kind of gives you a little bit of a,
keep pushing yourself,
keep
trying
pushing yourself,
trying
right?
new things.
Yeah, and in order for me to get ready for the motocross, I literally, that's what gets me going on a mountain bike.
Yeah,
That's what
absolutely.
gets me going jogging in the morning, lifting weights, right? Just to prepare for that. So
Yeah.
that's kind of like a nice consequence. Great family time, right? I take my son, I take my wife, my daughter, we camp, you camp in the outdoors and you spend the weekend and you're
That's awesome.
barbecuing and you make new friendships. And it's,
That's cool. You guys actually do like tent camping?
I have done that.
Yeah.
Now I actually have a small RV,
Oh,
like
cool.
a Sprinter size.
Oh, yeah?
But it's cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
Fits the four of us. It's very
That's sweet.
convenient.
Yeah.
So I enjoy it. And how much have you done?
I mean, I grew up with it just on the
Yeah.
farm that I grew up on. I had a 125 2-stroke, so just ripping around the farm.
Yeah.
For my 15th birthday, my parents bought me 5 dump trucks of dirt and rented me a Bobcat and just said,
Oh.
go nuts.
Yeah.
So I just ripped apart our whole backyard. We had jumps everywhere. Terrible jumps, like just
Yeah.
horribly built. I had no idea what I was doing. But just through the years did that. And now probably once a year I go to Colorado with my buddies and we
Amazing.
rent dirt bikes and just go trail riding
Yeah.
in the mountains.
Yeah. And it's such a different setting, right? Like
Oh,
Colorado.
I-
It's amazing.
I fear for my life quite often up there.
Yeah.
We rent 450s and we just go up. And when you're up in
Those
those
ridges.
man,
Oh.
and you get on, and we go above the tree line, which
Yeah.
looks so chill from the ground. You're like, oh, there's no trees. It's wide open. It's all loose rocks that are like this big. And if you put it
risky.
down, you're going down for a while.
Yeah.
So, but it's one of those things that you're in that flow state where you're just not thinking of anything else.
Yeah.
It's just you and the bike and trying not to die.
Yeah.
And it's something about it.
Yeah, you get in a zone and it's
Yeah.
amazing.
Everything melts away.
Yeah, you have zero. I mean, you're so laser focused on
Yeah.
doing that, and but yeah, I happen to have an extra one, maybe an extra 2, but we'll set it up. For
I don't
us.
ride often enough, but I went recently to. They have a track out west, kind of by the casino.
Yeah,
So I went there a couple times.
yeah, it's Miami MX.
Yeah, and that was fun. I'd never ridden a proper
yeah.
track before, and it was kind of scary, but it was fun.
Yeah, I highly recommend either you got to go when it's Saturdays are less busy than Sundays because sometimes if you're riding and on the track I consider myself still beginner to the intermediate level, right?
Same.
So I'm not doing the massive jumps that some of the guys are. So it becomes dangerous because you're going slow and you're like 2 jumps ahead and there's a guy who jumps 4 jumps behind and he's landing
In front of
and
you.
he can't see
Yeah.
where you are, right? So there's so you got to be careful. But
You're hitting a single and he's doing a triple, and then all of a sudden this guy falls out of the sky right next to you. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But I love it. I follow it. I travel like
What a great hobby.
I took my wife. We went to Dallas in the AT&T Stadium to watch a Supercross race in February. So
Real gringo shit.
real, yeah, yeah. But listen, it's awesome.
That's awesome.
And yeah, what other hobbies? Any other hobbies you got?
Wakeboarding.
Oh,
That's my main sport.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with wakeboarding.
Wow. And where do you do it? Are you doing in the cable system, or are you doing
Both.
mainly-
I prefer boat. I grew up with a boat.
Yeah.
In Minnesota, we had a cabin growing up, so we had our wakeboard boat. In the winter, I would snowboard. In the summer, I'd wakeboard. But my buddy has a wakeboard school here in Key Biscayne, right by in the Rickenbacker Marina,
Okay.
like by Rusty Pelican.
Yeah.
And so we just ride right in front
What's
of
the name? So we plug his
Gator Bait.
Gator Bait.
Gator
okay.
Bait wakeboarding.
So I'm sure I see
He has
him.
the best boats. He buys
He's-
like the brand new Mastercrafts.
Mastercraft.
Every 3 months he gets a new boat. So
Have you? I'm sure you've done. Have you done the wake surfing? Of
course, yeah,
Okay, I've never done that.
yeah, we should go.
It's cool.
Yeah.
It's nice.
It's super easy.
Yeah.
Easy, and you don't get hurt. It's impossible to get hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We did a corporate outing. When was it? September maybe last year. I don't. Within the last six months. To Amelia and Hart,
Sure.
the park.
Yeah.
I've been there.
Yeah.
That cable
many
system.
times.
And Victor is actually a pretty good boarder. He does kite surfing.
Yeah.
My other partner, Victor.
Yeah.
And we're there, and then there's a young guy in our group, younger than me, but he's a very cool guy who he is our partner handling the multifamily existing asset acquisitions. His name is Matt Skrull. I don't know if you've met him yet.
No, I haven't.
But he, this is one of these guys, just a phenomenal athlete, right? And he's like, so we did the picnic with everybody, and then at the end, I'm like, oh, who wants to join? Let's go do the cable system, right? So like, 5 or 6 of us get out there, and I hadn't wakeboarded in a little while, but jump, go around, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, cool, everybody's like probably saying, oh, this guy, the wakeboards. And then this guy puts on the board, puts on his little helmet, man, and he's like, I think I'm going to do the other side. I'm like, yeah, dude, but the other side has all of the rails, the jumps, this is like, I'm going to just go around it,
Yeah.
And the guy, it's not like he does it every day, right? He jumps on the thing, and next thing you know, the guy is just hitting every single one.
Every obstacle,
every jump, all of the rails. I'm like, who are you, dude?
He's a closet wakeboarder, right?
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
It's a great sport.
We'll have to go shred sometime.
Yeah.
Love to.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, Victor, I mean, this was so fun to hear your story.
Thank you, Nelson. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Nelson, I called you Victor because we were just talking about Victor.
We were just talking about Victor. Thank you guys for the, this is a cool opportunity. I hope that the audience enjoys just
I'm sure they will.
They don't have the benefit of, this is one of the best Negronis that I've had in my life, so they don't have the benefit of.
Felipe whips up a great Negroni. Yeah.
So I really appreciate the opportunity, and it's been great, seeing everything that you guys have also done in the market, right?
Thank you.
Hope to continue, looking for ways to work together. So
absolutely.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Great thing.
Thanks, Nelson.
Cheers, Nelson.
Have a great weekend. Bye.
Yep.